Hey you guys, and welcome back to Manna with Melissa. And it's your girl, Melissa. So before I go any further, I want to say Happy New Year. I haven't seen you since last year. And so this is going to be the first of many teachings this year, along with some other things that are going to be in the making. And we are finishing the discussion on boundaries. So the previous teaching, if you haven't seen that, go ahead and back and watch it. But it was talking about an introduction to boundaries and protecting our space and the space of others, right? God he set some things up to protect ourselves. And so today, we're going to go a little deeper and talking about what those actually look like in different relationships, from friendships to courtship to parents, and even with our time with God, because that needs to be protected as well. So I want you guys to stay tuned. I also want you to get a notebook because it's going to be a little word heavy, okay? All right, so let's stick along for the ride. So as I mentioned before in the last video, boundaries is one of my favorite words I could say and talk about all the time. And when the Lord introduced it to me, he really was so interested in my safety and how I treated others. It's really important to the Lord, the way that we treat his people, the way that his people treat us. Because it's more to God than just praying and fasting and, getting up and praying for food and all those other things. He's really interested in seeing his character, his kingdom revealed in our lives. And with the teaching, with the learning of boundaries and relationships, we get to see just how the character of God should be shown, how to protect and be safe and keep others safe. So let's talk about boundaries and friendships. So friendships, what their authority and its role is to be a counsel. It's to be a sound counsel to you and for you to be a sound counsel to the other person. But one thing that we can tend to go into is either making the other person our God, or them making us their God, where we go to them for everything, right? And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with, you have that go-to friend that you can tell anything to, but it's very crucial that the limits where there's your best friend and then there is God. Because many times the Lord isn't, I don't know about you, but there's been many times where the Lord isn't necessarily leading me to tell my best friend, isn't leading me to vent to my best friend. He's actually wants me to go and spend time with him. So make sure that you don't replace that quality time, that venting session, that pouring out your heart to God. Now, don't get me wrong. The Lord is at times he's going to instruct you to know who to go to, right? Sound counsel with the friends, the protect the friends that he's given you, but do not forsake time with the Lord. And there's been many times where he'll say, come to me, and then you can share that, right? But there's this, we don't want to overstep. We don't want our friends or us to overstep our boundaries and become gods or idols, right? Even if they're the best advice givers, they always know what to say, right? The Lord wants that place in your heart. So be mindful of that error. And to add to that, for many of us, our friends mean the world to us. If we're blessed enough, and if you're blessed enough, you have friends that the Lord has given you, and they're a blessing. But the Lord instructs that you should love everyone, but put no trust in man. And what that means is not to say that you can't trust your friends. It's just saying not to put all your trust, all of your stock in man. And the word says that cursed is the man who puts all their trust in man, right? And we're supposed to put all of our trust in the Lord. So just be very mindful, because that protects us, right? We're talking about that protection and boundaries. That protects us from erring. That protects us that when we give ungodly expectations to our friends or put too much stock in them, that when they let us down, we don't go into this fit, right? Because we recognize their limits. We recognize that they're human, that they're going to make mistakes, right? That they may misunderstand certain things, right? And so be mindful, even in your friendships, not to put all of your trust and your stock in them. I also want to talk about ways that we can harm our friends. We can defile our own friends and the boundaries that he's even me set up with this. So it's so easy, right? Where we call up our friends, FaceTime, call them up, right? And we got so much to share with them. But this area that I'm about to tell you guys about, we don't even notice how much it's actually harming them. And that is gossip. That is kind of just like spewing out whatever kind of just comes out of our our hearts. And it's not always just gossip. It's just sometimes the negativity. It's just pouring out all the issues of life. And so I want to read Proverbs. It's Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23 to 24. And it says, keep your heart with all diligence. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issues of life. Put away you a deceitful mouth, and put perverse lips far from you. Now, what that means is basically our heart is so full of so many things that we take on in life, worries, sometimes bitterness, hatred, right? Anger. And we may not say, literally spew hateful words onto our friends, but sometimes literally out of the abundance of our heart, our mouth is speaking. And because of that, when we start to open up our mouths and share this with our friends and share the gossip and share all the negativity, we actually defile them. And the word talks about, it's not about what you put in your mouth, right, that defiles you, right? It's not about the food. Like, we focus on eating the right things, because that's going to come right out, if you kind of get what I'm saying. Sorry, I had to go there. But it's what comes out of your mouth that defiles you and defiles a person. So when the Lord starts to show me like that, I'm like, wow, I got to be very careful. And we kind of say, well, I'm not gossiping. I'm just kind of laying what's on my heart. We know what gossip is. You know when you're not, when it's going into this negative place, when it's going into this whirlwind of like, and so, I had to make sure, don't err in that. And also Matthew chapter 15, verse 18 to 20, it says, but those things which proceed out of the mouth come from the heart and defile a man. That is the word. For out of the heart proceeds evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornication, thefts, all these lists of things, right? And some of us are like, I'm not a murderer. I'm not a thief. That's not what I'm doing. I'm talking to my friends. But he's giving the extreme to show you that when you just allow your heart and the things and the matters of your heart to just spew on your friend, you defile them. And so if you truly love your neighbor as yourself, if you truly love your friend as yourself, you will not want to defile them with the issues of your heart. And so be very mindful. When I try to be so mindful when I'm in conversation with my friends that if it's going left, Lord, forgive me, let's come out of that, right? Because we all err, right? But just be mindful, be protective over your time and how you defile, and bring negativity or bring things. This is not something that's seen, but it's something that the word says. It's something that's spiritual and it defiles them. So be mindful of that. Another boundary in our friendship is overusing our friends. Okay, it's possible. I know that we get a chance to borrow things and, they share things with us. But from the Old Testament to the New Testament, the Lord shares stories about not repaying people what they're due. So if you're withholding something from a friend, they gave you money. Now, I'm not saying gifts, right? We know that friends give gifts, but God is even that concerned in his word literally from the Old Testament to the New about repaying people what they're due. It says, repay no man. The only thing that you should owe them is love. And in the Old Testament, I believe it's Exodus chapter 22 and it's 26 through 27. It's telling of a story about, if you ever take your neighbor's garment, right? And, that's the only thing that they have. And you know that you owe this and this could be money. This could be anything. So put a scenario, whatever it may be to you. But don't withhold that from them, right? The Lord looks on matters like that because that says something about our heart. And the Lord is truly a God of justice. He's such a righteous judge. So he's not just a righteous judge about big things like murder and all those. He's righteous down to those nitty gritty things, right? Those little petty lies, right? He cares about that. And, when you're younger and younger in the faith, we kind of feel like, okay, it is what it is. But as you mature more and more, you start to even feel in your heart like that. I do owe them money. I do owe them. And withholding that, knowing that you're withholding it, release that, because who knows, that's something that could be hindering your prayer. We're asking like, Lord, what is that? What's hindering? Sometimes as minor as that, give the person back what they're due. Give your friend back what they're due. So make sure that you're setting that limit in your boundaries in your friendships and not overusing them, whether it's their resources and it's not just always physical, their time, right? Just their resources, their space. It even talks about in Proverbs of not being around a person too long. Right? It's nothing wrong with, I love that. I'm like, Lord, you're so wise where even you, our God, as wonderful, and you could be thinking about bigger matters. You're like, don't spend too much time over someone's house. Like, go home, spend time by yourself, learn to be by yourself, because you don't want someone to end up hating you. That's the word, and I'll put that in the I'll put the verse where that is in the video. So I just mentioned how we can harm our friends, right? How we can defile our friends, but on the other hand, you know, our friends can also harm us in ways. And when I say this, when I go into this, I'm not trying to say to be in this negative space of trust nobody. You can't trust nobody. That's not what I'm saying. It's perspective that people change, right? Only God really remains the same. And so the perspective is that when friends change, right, when things may come up, or there's transition in friendships, or growth level in friendship, or sometimes a removing, the word talks about repaying no evil for evil, right? To do good unto a person, that when you do that, you're heaping coals of fire on them. It's like that kindness is burning them. And so be mindful that even when, you know, friends do things that go outside of your boundaries, or harm you, or abuse, or talk about you, or slander your name, and, you know, those are not necessarily friends, but I'm saying when people make those mistakes, or even, you know, there's a falling out, or whatever that may be, in a godly relationship that the Lord ordained, not talking about the ones he's saying to let go. He's saying to be merciful, right? To still pray for them, to still cover them. But also, you want to be able to identify those places of if there's control and manipulation going on. You want to be able to identify those things and call them out. The Lord will maybe begin to show you some things that they do, you know, because, you know, you're loyal. I mentioned this in the last video, but because you're loyal to them, your history, or what they've done for you, you feel these obligations, but you identify that control, and you call it out. I believe it's John 10:10, it talks about how the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Now, I know we don't want to put that characteristic to our friends, but that's when a spirit is working behind a person, that's what they're working in. They're working in stealing, and stealing and destroying. And so you want to protect what the Lord has made safe. By that's the authority that he's given you, right? The authority invested in you is to say, to identify and to call it out, and to say that you're not going to deal with that. And if it doesn't get corrected, I ask that the Lord give you wisdom in how to deal, and if it's also time to remove that person. Let me tell you one thing I learned. God's cutoff game is strong, okay? I know we say our cutoff game is strong, but when God is done with a relationship, with a certain relationship, whether it's a friendship, or, you know, he is done with it. Especially when it's not bearing any fruit, right? When these unions are causing someone to err, or it's draining one person, right? I've had those experiences where, you know, people that I grew up with, and I thought that they were going to be friends for a long time, that wasn't the Lord's decision. He saw some things that I did not see. And so he cut it off. He allowed me to walk with them, or he may be allowing you to walk with them for a while. But when he says it's done, it's done. And it's because the Lord sees the end from the beginning. He sees things that you don't see. You may be in this like kind of whirlwind of like, you know, love and friendship and all this other stuff, but he sees when it'll go left. He sees when it's not going to bear fruit. He sees when it's going to, you know, some harmful things are also going to happen. And also, it says not to be in the counsel of the wicked. Now, this is a little different, but so be mindful. There's friends, and then, you know, we kind of put those that are in the wicked, or the counsel of the wicked, into our friendship. It says don't be around it. Don't let that be your counsel. Yes, Jesus was around sinners, and yes, we have to minister to sinners, but I'm saying don't let them be your counsel. Don't let them be your go-to. Literally sitting in the seat of the scornful, sitting in the ones that gossip and, you know, that talk evil and want to plan evil, want to plan bloodshed. That's not the Lord's way, okay? And so just be mindful that you're not sitting, literally relaxing in places where he does not want you. That's why you feel uncomfortable. That's why he's delivering you from those places. And so it's not that, oh, now you acting different and nothing like that. It's because you're having a thirst for righteousness and holiness, and those things, you're not going to want that taste anymore. This is the last one in friendships, but this is very important to the Lord, because there's no gray areas in him. It's letting your yes be your yes and letting your no be your no. And anything in between is judgment. And he says that because the Lord wants everything we say and do to be in faith. And so when you are being kind of controlled, and I won't always say control, but you feel this obligation to always say yes, always be there, always show up. You know, you feel like if you don't do certain, like I said before, if you don't do a certain thing, their love is going to change. They're not going to be your friends. The Lord wants you to come out of that place. Come out of that place of fear. Come out of condemnation. Let your yes be yes. If it's a yes, and if you can do it, and if he's leading you to do it, not just when you can do it, but if he's leading you to do it, then say yes. And if it's a no, it's a straight no with no explanations and nothing added to it. Okay? He's giving you that authority, that boundary to put around yourself because he loves you and he wants to protect you. And he also wants to let other people know that and to see that you can't be taken advantage of. And that goes the same thing for you. If you've been that person to do it to others, be mindful, right? Respect their no, respect their yes, right? And don't use them. Don't overuse even your authority on them because you know that you have your influence in their lives. Okay, so what do boundaries look like in courtship? And for those who that term may sound kind of like old, or you maybe never really heard of it, it's the godly form of dating. It's where you're getting to be with someone with the intent of marriage, with the intent that the Lord is going to be the center of your relationship. And when I go into this, and this may be led to even be another topic one day, but when I go into this, I'm not talking about being perfect and I'm talking about you keeping the Lord at the center of this relationship that you believe that could be marriage, right? And so there needs to be boundaries even in that. And so we know about, of course, maybe the physical boundaries, because the Lord, for many, and even myself, I want to wait until marriage with my mate. That is my desire. And certain boundaries need to be set up where it's as practical as watching your time, the time that you overly spend with them, the conversations that you're having, right? If it's going a little too far, you may want to come out of it. And again, that's letting the Lord in the center. That's not saying, I'm grown or anything like that. But when you are setting up boundaries in your relationship and trying to make sure that this is done the godly way, you're going to do things that please him. He's going to convict you about, for some people, I'm not saying this is for everyone. For some people, there's stories that you may or may not have heard of where he's not leading them a kiss until marriage. I'm not saying that's for everybody. But if he leads you to that, set up those boundaries to make sure, okay, can't be that close. I know myself and I don't want to go that far. Group date, if you're in a certain place or, being touched a certain way or looked at a certain way, talk about those boundaries in your relationship, right? And those are the physical things. And moreover, there's no set rules. I'm not setting rules here because the Lord is going to counsel you in how he's going to lead you in your relationships, right? But go with what the Lord is saying, right? Go with what the Lord is impressing upon you. He'll start to give you certain desires like, I don't want to do that. And I want to honor, because before they become your husbands or anything like that, they're your brothers in Christ. They're your sisters in Christ. And so I remember the Lord kind of gave me that perspective, and it helped me like, wow, I don't want, just like I wouldn't want anyone I was just, ministering to be harmed. I don't want to cause this person to sin. I don't want them to be in error. And so that's how I have to look at them. Though it's, they're your brother in Christ, but you may have extra feelings that there's a desire there. There's an attraction there. That is okay. That's fine. But just setting up those boundaries. Also for that, I'm not going to stay on this one too long, but it's not putting so much into them. I think sometimes when we get into romantic relationships, again, the ones that are led by the Lord, that are, that the Lord is leading us to, we can try to overly spend time, overly be on the phone. And it's like, it's nothing wrong with wanting to be around them. And you got those feelings and stuff like that. But sometimes the Lord he wants you to give them space. He wants you to seek counsel from him about them, and, having conversations with the Lord as well about this person. So you don't overly do it. You don't make them an idol. You don't make marriage an idol. You don't make the relationship an idol, engagement, single. You don't make it an idol. And so that's some of the boundaries that you can set in courtship. All right, moving on to boundaries with authority. And I switched it to authority instead of parents because not everyone has parents. Maybe you have parent figures, authority figures, or parent-like figures, or, mothers and fathers. But anyone that stands in that area. This could be a tricky one, especially because we love them, we honor our parents, and as we get older, and even as we're younger, it can be very hard to see how boundaries could be overstepped by parents, but they actually can. And because in the word it says, provoke not your children to wrath, the Lord identifies that there is a way that parents, people that are in authority can overuse or manipulate the role that they've been given. So when it even talks about don't provoke your children to wrath, it's in the things that you say. It's, calling them certain names. It's even manipulating sometimes their because they, that parents know that you love them so much. They can tend to put their desires on you, their dreams on you, their worries, and even sometimes their past hurts and pains on you. And it's very important that as you get that understanding that you protect yourself, because the Lord may begin to show you just the heart matters of them, that they too may be broken, and some parents may be broken in some areas, and they just may, because they love you, because they're close or just close to you as well, the issues of their heart are coming onto you. And so in all respect and all honor, right, the best way that you can, try to make sure to set up boundaries, even with parents as you get older, in your time, in expectations of certain things, not things that you just don't want to do because of, oh, well, I don't feel like doing it. But I'm talking about things that are taking you out of the will of the Lord, out of the purposes or plans of the Lord, and even just manipulating your time and different things like that. I know that sounds familiar, but yes, it even happens in authority-like figures, parent-like figures as well. So be mindful of those forms of manipulation, of control, because that's a pretty sneaky one. And so protect yourself. And this last and final one is boundaries with God. And I know you're like, boundaries with God? There should be no limits. You're absolutely right. There is no limits with God. There is no holding back. You could talk to him anytime. You could spend time with him anyway. But what I'm talking about is protecting your time with God, protecting your relationship with God. And if any other thing in our life needs protection, that does, because that's what we're in a constant war and fight over. So starting with your time with the Lord, whenever I spend time with God, and everyone spends it in a different way, in the bathroom, in their living room, in their bed, driving in the car on the way to work, in the office. But set time that the time that you really set a time with the Lord, protect it like you would protect your most treasured relationship. Meaning phone down, Facebook time down, social media time off. If and I know some of us are parents, some people are parents and have a lot of things, but when you set a certain time, and sometimes you may schedule it, right? This sacred time with the Lord, not that it's rushed, not the quick devotional reading. I'm talking about real time with God. Turn off that phone and, put your phone on do not disturb, because imagine if you were on a date with someone and all they kept doing was picking up their phone and looking and texting. You will feel disrespected. You will be dishonored. And that's how the Lord feels. Yes, he's understanding. Yes, he's gracious, but he deserves our time. He's jealous for us. The word says that he is jealous for me, and not in a sinful way that because, he's insecure. No, it's because he deserves us. He paid the price for us, right? And he loves us. He loves us so much. And so protect that time with the Lord. So I want to give you some word here, because in that time with the Lord, it's in that space, where we can't necessarily give it to our friends. We can't give it to our parents. We can't give it to even our people that we're maybe in a romantic relationship with. We can give everything to the Lord. And I know I'm not, again, I know there's some things like, I tell my friends, I tell them everything. But there's something about the Lord's love that's different. There's a God-sized void type of love. And I want to put some word on it, okay? So it says in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7, cast your cares upon him, for he cares for you. Meaning throw everything off, right? And I'm learning that in my singlehood right now. I'm learning that just to cast everything onto him, because believe it or not, everybody can't handle it. And even those that love you, friends that love you, it's not their job. But God is like, you could put all your weight on me. You know, you could put all your weight on me. You could put all your heaviness on me. And again, at first it may be like, who am I talking to? If you're new to it, but you realize in faith, as you grow in faith, that you can cast all your cares on the Father because he cares for you. And also it says in his word, Philippians chapter 4, verse 6-7, it says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything in prayer and supplication. That's the asking, right? With thanksgiving, make your request known to God. So that means that as you go into that quiet time with the Lord, you're giving him your supplications, right? There, because it has to be marinated with thanksgiving. Thank the Lord, right? Because we don't want to just be he's not a genie, just give. You know, you give thanks to him, but you can make supplications about your desires, about the things of your heart, about the things that you need, right? Knowing that he can handle it all, that you have not came out of or any boundaries, you know, because there's no boundaries with him. You can give it all to him. There's also, and that'll stop you from giving to others what's not holy. It says, do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine. So that'll stop you from just word vomiting on everyone, giving them all your ideas, giving precious ideas to the wrong person because you're lonely, so you're just talking to anybody. But trusting in the Lord with all of your heart, right? And leaning onto his counsel and his understanding, that you don't even want to have, sometimes you want to just automatically go to the Lord because you just know that he's got you. You're going to feel so much better once you release all those things onto him. So that's very important, to protect your time, right? Literally your time spent, your prayer time, because prayer time is mixed with sometimes intercession, which is interceding for others, praying for others. And sometimes it's a place where you lay down your burdens. And so to know that that's a safe place, you got to protect it from others, you know, and keep it safe with you and him. And my last thing is that you want to protect your relationship with God like you would protect if somebody was talking about somebody that you loved. And what I mean by that is when the enemy comes in with lies that talks about the God you serve, he's not for you. If he was for you, he wouldn't allow that to happen. And, you know, speaking all these lies against you, against your father, you know, that he's not real. If he was real, you know, why don't you feel all these lies? If you wouldn't allow someone to talk in your ear about your closest friend, I want you to think about that when you're with your time with the Lord. Don't allow the enemy to speak those lies, because the Lord has given you the word of God that you can spit right back, that you can spit that fire right back at him. I cast down every imagination and every thought that exalts itself against the knowledge of God. So when those thoughts start to flood in, hit it with the word. Hate it with those scriptures that says, you know, when he tries to talk about the Lord doesn't love you, that the Lord made me, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, that he loves me, that he will never forsake me, he will never leave me. That no height, nor depth, nor width, nor angels, nor demons, nor nothing can separate me from the love of God. Throw that back at him. So you protect your relationship more than all these other things we talk about protecting. You protect your relationship with the Lord, because that is that's the thing that needs to be the most sacred to you. That's the thing that needs to be so safe. It needs to be guarded, because without it, that's when you let down your guard with everything else. That's when you allow the enemy and his lies and friends and, you know, whoever the enemy may be using to steal, kill, and destroy. That's when they can come in like a flood and try to, you know, take advantage. So the most important thing is protect your time with the Lord. So I know that was a lot when it came to just talking about so many boundaries and what that kind of looks like. And I hope that you guys did take notes and that you use these principles and the things that the Lord, you know, just reveals in his word. I know I kind of put my own spin on this stuff, but all of this came from the word. All of this came from literally the counsel of the word. But all of those boundaries I'm talking about, all of that, you know, staying safe and respecting others and others respecting you, and keeping out from the enemy, is to say that the only safe place and the only safe habitation is the Lord. And so I encourage you to make the Lord the Most High your refuge, your run-to place, your go-to place, right? So, you know, I know what it feels like to be lonely. I know what it feels like, my friend is all I got. You know, my parents are all I have, or the God-ordained relationship that the God-ordained relationship that the Lord gave me. That's all I have. But that's not. He never wants anyone to to come before him. He just wants you to know that he's a safe place, that you can run to him and be safe. He will be your protector. He will be your friend. He will be your counselor. He will be your parent. If you feel abandoned, he will be your father. He will be your mother. So yeah, you guys, take refuge in the Lord. And set up those boundaries. Set up those boundaries. If you feel led, I want you to like, comment, and subscribe to stay notified for the new videos coming up. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.